The night carried with it an urgency, a fear. Troy knew it well. Every time he was embarking on something dangerous, a rapid beating in his chest sent adrenaline coursing through him. The moon was a beckoning mistress that called out and both urged him forward to action, but also was a cautionary warning. Troy embraced these sensations, acknowledging them, but not submitting to them. He sat in his car, checking his gun for the 5th or 6th time to ensure that it was loaded and ready for use, and sitting beside him was Frost, who was in nice clothing, but nothing like the dress she wore the other night. Frost, too, had a pistol strapped to her thigh, though Troy prayed she wouldn't have to be involved in any gunfighting. He preferred to work alone, but he was also smart enough to know that going up to a guarded U-boat without backup was as close to suicide as one can get. "So, what's the plan for getting closer?" Frost asked. "Closer? You didn't expect to just walk up there guns blazing, did you?" The thought crossed my mind, Troy answered sarcastically. Frost giggled at the joke and stepped out of the car with Troy as they made their way towards the gate. "We might need something a bit more subtle," he pointed out. "Well, we can't have them thinking we're law enforcement," Frost pointed out as well. Troy sighed and got out of the car with Frost right behind him. "Well, first we need to make sure that the U-boat is even there," Troy said. "They might have left the dock by now. Plan right now is for us to get within eyesight of it, assure that it's there, and then probably not a good idea to actually walk up to it. We'll call the police and keep an eye out for them and just hope they don't leave." "And how do you plan on getting within eyesight of it without them spotting us?" Frost asked. "Well, we're not wearing police uniforms. They might assume we're just average lost citizens and order us to leave or try to detract us or something." "Or they'll start shooting," Frost scowled. "Well, I'm open to any other suggestions you have," Troy answered. "Otherwise, Before he could finish, there was the sound of shooting and a gunshot right over his head. Troy had been in enough firefights to recognize the sound and act instinctively. With a curse, he hit the ground and pulled his gun. 2 shots rang out early from Troy's own gun, and with those shots, 2 Kriegsmarine soldiers dropped. But it wasn't long before pistol fire was being returned. Rifles were being pulled out, firing in their direction, and Frost was fumbling to pull out her own pistol as she ducked down with Troy. She was a strong girl, but she wasn't used to being fired at. Troy spat angrily and fired back, not happy that Frost had been proven right. "Damn it! We didn't even get close enough to see the damn thing. Stay low and get back behind the fence. Call the police." "I'm not leaving you here alone," she argued. "You're no good to me dead." "And you're outnumbered," she argued. She was interrupted as a bullet grazed the crate she hid behind. Troy cursed again and fired 2 more rounds in the direction of the shot. There was German shouting from man to man as they were starting to get coordinated again. "For once, would you just not argue with what I have to say and just do it?" Troy shouted. Frost sneered but nodded. She suddenly cried out as a pistol shot rang over her head. Troy swore loudly and saw that the Germans were now ensuring they couldn't get away, not without taking a bullet to the back. They were pinned. "Elizabeth," he crawled closer to her, "I need you to sneak around and flank them from the right." "Flank? What do you mean?" "It means go on their other side, okay? Just sneak around in that direction. I'll keep their attention. Just don't let yourself be seen." "Oh, okay." "It's just like in the shooting range, okay? Just these guys shoot back." "I've shot at criminals before, you ass," she shouted. And that was true. But she'd never shot at trained soldiers before. These guys wouldn't be dumb street thugs who had no real gun training. These guys wouldn't show mercy because of her pretty face. Now Troy was faced with a dilemma. He had to stop this, find out what these Germans were up to, and keep Frost safe. "I should never have gotten her involved," he grunted. "James Troy, you're a frickin' idiot." There was a sudden shout and garble in German, and Troy was suddenly thrown to the ground by a pair of large and brutish hands. Troy grunted and looked up, surprised he hadn't even noticed the German getting closer. He looked just in time to see the hulking monster of a man throw himself at Troy, knife in hand. Troy swung himself out of the way and kicked into the German's side, putting distance between them as he climbed to his feet. The Nazi grunted, but kept coming, slashing with his long blade. Troy threw up his forearm to block the oncoming slash and roared in pain as cold steel cut through flesh. But fortunately, Troy was accustomed to it. He knew the sensation of lead and steel in his body. He knew the bite of a blade better than most. The moment the knife made contact, he seized his chance and grabbed the soldier's knife wrist. Using it as a trap arm, he struck hard in the jaw with an uninjured elbow. The sound of a crack echoed through the docks as the soldier's jaw broke and he collapsed to the ground, moaning. The brief skirmish had changed the course of fighting. Many of the Germans were now moving in to engage directly, seeing the distracted Troy, but in doing so had made themselves vulnerable. James Troy raised his pistol with his good hand and fired off a volley of bullets. The first 3 Germans close to him fell, efficiently and easily. Only a few seemed to remain on the docks to contend with. His arm throbbed, and he felt blood oozing down his fingers as he bit his lip in pain. This wasn't turning out like he'd hoped, but the U-boat was obviously there. Hardly a kilometer away. He could make it. He could get there and find out what these Nazis wanted. Find out what they were planning, why they would dock here. It'd be the realization of his career. "Throw down your guns!" Troy shouted, wishing he could say it in German. "Disarm yourselves, and I won't kill you!" He glanced around but saw no sign of Frost. She was supposed to be sneaking around. Where'd she gone? Did she maybe escape? Maybe it was better that way. "Guten Abend!" "Und gute Nacht!" Troy spun to see a man standing just to his right where he hadn't been looking. The soldier had his gun drawn and aimed at Troy's head, and his finger was on the trigger. James Troy had been at death's door many times. He'd been struck, shot, stabbed, poisoned once. And when death reached out to embrace him, he always felt the same instinct, the same incomprehensible desire to his heart. He smiled. James Troy simply smiled at the soldier. It was not a smile of happiness or excitement, nor was it condescending or arrogant. It was as if Troy were merely accepting the reality of death and allowing it to pass. After all, the greatest mystery of them all waited for him behind the sound of a gun being fired and a final escaped breath. If he was going to die, at least it was doing his job. But all he wished was that he could see Elizabeth one more time. Troy froze, and then watched as the soldier who had had him cornered fell to the ground, a bullet hole in his forehead. James spun around to see Frost behind a crate of boxes, holding one of the dead soldier's rifles in her dainty hands. She was pale and sweating, but alive, and she just shot the soldier in cold blood. Troy was more than a little impressed. He would have thanked her if the next sight he saw didn't terrify him. "Elizabeth, behind you!" The last soldier had snuck up behind her and struck her on the head, aiming his pistol at her. She screamed. She swung her arm back, but was too late as he grabbed his own arm around her neck and held her to his chest as a human shield. The soldier aimed the pistol at Frost's face and sneered. "Do you value this Fraulein?" he bellowed. "Do you wish her dead?" "Let her go," Troy ordered, aiming his gun now at them both. "Take another step and the Fraulein dies," he snapped back. Troy stood stock still, staring daggers at the uniformed hostage-taker. He then glared at Frost and tried to see if she could wriggle free. She was squirming helplessly, but when the soldier touched her cheek with the barrel of his gun, she stopped moving. Her gorgeous eyes fell on Troy, and they exchanged a look of understanding. A silent agreement, a moment of truth between them. "James," she called, "I want you to know, you're the worst boss I've ever worked for." "What?" Troy asked. "God damn it, James, just look what you always get me into," she shouted. "I didn't sign up to be shot at or held hostage by a smelly German pig. I didn't even want you to stay," Troy argued. "You should have run off when you had the chance. I told you to get out of here. I told you to go get the police." "Like hell I'd ever do that. That's exactly why you suck as a boss. You're lazy, you always get lost in your own crazy ideas and thoughts, you're too short-tempered, and you have no manners to speak of. You can't even take this hostage situation seriously. You think I'm not serious? You're always too serious. You take every case too seriously, and you always drag me into your crazy adventures and cases without even asking me what I think. And that's why..." Elizabeth gave the faintest but most heartfelt smile Troy had ever seen. "That's why you're the worst boss I've ever worked for. But I love working for you, you crazy bastard." The sound of a gunshot went off. The argument had been the decoy that Troy was using. The soldier, trying to keep up with what was being said, slowly was lowering his gun as Frost screamed, giving Troy the opening he needed to unload his last bullet into the soldier's face. Frost gave a scream and dropped to the ground as her captor collapsed. Troy rushed her and checked her for any wounds or damage. Other than some blood on her face, she seemed unharmed. But she still had a look of being rattled and her clothes were a little torn. Damn it all. It's cutting it way too close, Troy muttered. My hero, Elizabeth giggled. Troy smiled. Good thinking. But you need to head back to the car now. Get the police if you can. Elizabeth didn't argue this time, but just waited a moment, shivering on the concrete ground. Troy, realizing how rattled up she was, gently knelt down and wrapped his arm around her, letting her cling to him as she shivered. I'll give you a raise after this. Don't bother. What's a few extra dollars in my pocket to this kind of adventure? You really do need to get going, Troy whispered. There might be more on the ship. We'll want the police here soon. I'm going to go on board and take a look around, see if I can find anything. And for what it's worth, Elizabeth, I really am glad you're here. I wouldn't have this job any other way, she admitted. Like I said, I love working for you, you crazy bastard.